I wrote here actually with something from a book that says his genitals are the center of the earth, which in flood system is the limit of materiality and darkness. See, this is what I mean. Esotericism gets really, really bizarre. Very bizarre. Welcome back to the Mystic Rose Esoterica channel. My name is Kay and I talk all about esotericism, mysticism, esoteric history, all that good jazz. So I'm gonna basically be going through all of my esoteric journals to kind of show you guys, my journey through studying mysticism and esoteric knowledge. And I think that every, mystic or just seeker of esoteric knowledge should keep record of everything that they're studying. It definitely has helped me along the way, as well as it helps me integrate more of the information when I'm writing it down and when I'm meditating upon symbols or just information in general. It also helps me connect the dots to basically all the little keys that I'm finding along the way. And that's something that I like to say to a lot of people, and in my book I'm actually currently writing, is that we all obtain keys on this esoteric path, and all of those keys unlock doorways to new keys. But yeah, so it helps, kind of connect the dots, because there is a lot of, dense information within this, academic study. So it personally has helped me connect the, hidden leaks that I'm sort of trying to navigate. So yeah, without further ado, I have a couple journals. I don't know if I'm going to go through all of them, but I do want to go through my big boy, which I'll show you right now. Also, I moved, which is really exciting. So that's also why, you guys have not seen me. As well as, just the state of the world. I'm pretty sure a lot of us have been left just completely lost, devastated. And at least for me, I have not really delved into mysticism or my spirituality or religion at all, due to the state of the world and what's happening. But, I feel ready to get back on, and I also really feel ready to get back into my, mysticism, because I'm definitely feeling dead inside. And I think that that's how I am, without esotericism and without spirituality, is a complete, utter, nihilistic mess. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, so today I'm going to be showing my journals. I also am going to be talking a little bit about how I got into esotericism. So I will show you the first ever journal that I wrote in. But this is my big magnum opus is what I'm calling it. It's definitely not finished. It's just the beginning. And then the other three are these ones right here. So I have three of these guys. So I'll give you guys the names for the journal. So this is by Paper Blanks, and these are the long skinny ones, which I absolutely love. So yeah, this is my first journal that I'm going to be going over with you guys. And this is the second, which actually matches, they're the same. And this is the third, which is a blue edition. All right. So this started about I want to say 4 years ago. I'm now 23. So that was, I think it started around when I was 19. Probably 20, but it might have been 19. I don't know. Anyways, this is the first journal. So this is kind of giving you guys an introduction into what I first studied. So this is the front page here. I've got a picture of John Dee. And then I have a photo of Robert Flood's artwork as well right here. This is the second page here. This is my title, which is my study on Esoterica, Kabbalistic teachings, Rosicrucianism, and Egyptian knowledge. Which I honestly didn't really write a whole lot about ancient Egypt in here. I have a picture of God as the architect of the universe. This is supposed to depict Christ as the architect of the universe. And then here is a photo of Robert Flood here. And the reason why I put these pictures here is because these were kind of the first characters that I was really intrigued by. I really liked Robert Flood because of his Christian viewpoint on Kabbalah and alchemy, which I thought was really interesting. And then I was really intrigued by John Dee because he channeled angels, and his sort of system on Enochian magic was really interesting to me, as well as him just obviously being in Elizabeth I's court. That's pretty intriguing. I actually read through some of this stuff, but not the dense information stuff, more of this one, because this one I actually talk about my own, like, what would you call it, revelations, or just my own writings, like things that I was, really channeling and meditating. It's actually when I discovered the symbol of the mystic rose. And what's really fascinating about this was during a time where I hadn't connected the dots why I was told that the mystic rose was upon me. And this was shortly after, though. This was about a couple months after I was told that. When I found these teachings and I noticed that their symbol was the rose, that's when I connected the dots. And that's why this channel is called Mystic Rose Esoterica. So, good old story times. So yeah, most of these pages, aren't filled with pictures. There's just a lot of writing, which is normal, obviously. But to get to some of the photos, actually, here's a really lovely one. This is the microcosmic man. I believe this is another Robert Flood artwork here, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is, yes, because I have the Robert Flood book full of his artwork. Here's another one. This one here is the divine monochord. And then here's another image of the microcosm. I wrote here actually with something from a book that says, his genitals are the center of the earth, which in Flood system is the limit of materiality and darkness. See, this is what I mean. Esotericism gets really, really bizarre. Very bizarre. But I love it. I love it. It's great. Here's another image I have. That's as well a Robert Flood image. And then I also have Christ here. Some Kabbalistic symbols, the Star of David. And then I started kind of like drawing the symbols out. I started meditating on Robert Flood's idea of the Great Darkness, which we're going to kind of get into with this, because I really meditate on the paradoxes of nothingness and everythingness, the all and the nothing, as well as like the Great Darkness and what that is, like, the mother, the void, things like that. Here is good old Lucifer falling from heaven. We love to see it. We love to see it. Leonardo da Vinci. It was really interesting when I started to connect these dots, where I was like, wow, Leonardo da Vinci drew the microcosm. That was what that was. Okay, these are the secret symbols of the Rosicrucians. I did indeed print these out, and I tried to kind of dissect them, although I will admit it's very hard. But here's my attempt. We've got like the tree of knowledge there, of good and evil, right here. We've got Celestial Eve, or Sophia. We got this lovely one here, the Hermetic Philosophy. Mystic Lamb, or Christ. And then we have the Rosicrucian Cross, which actually I'm wearing today. I don't know why I felt like it was fitting to wear this today. I haven't worn it in a while. So yeah, as you can see, a lot of this ended up being Rosicrucianism, because I became so absolutely in awe of Rosicrucian philosophy. And so most of it ended up being Rosicrucianism. Here's some more symbols. If you guys don't know, Rosicrucianism is, very Christian in nature. That's like where it all began, was during the Protestant Reformation. Rosicrucianism arose. And if you're interested actually in learning more about Rosicrucianism, I actually have a YouTube video on it, so you should definitely check that out. Here's Nicholas Flamel right here, which is amazing. We've got that iconic figure who's been in several movies like Harry Potter and As Above, So Below. He's actually in quite a lot of movies, but he was a real figure. So that was really, really cool to kind of study. But honestly, I want to study Nicholas Flamel more. Here I go into the number of the beast, and how I connect it to the number 9, because we've got 666 and 144,000, and how they both add up to 9. This was an interesting study because I was like, why 9? And then when I broke down the Hebrew gematria of Adam, the first man, his, Hebrew gematria adds up to 9. I got the Tetragrammaton. Here I have some images from the Alchemical Wedding Manifesto. This is a third Rosicrucian manifesto that was published. And I actually don't know if this artwork was like originally dedicated to the manifesto, but I found this artwork and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I really liked having that mental image while I was reading the manifesto. Raymond Lull, that's another great figure. He was actually like trying to unite Kabbalah and Christianity and the Muslim faith and to bring it in harmony through using Kabbalah, which I thought was really interesting. And he was around during 1232. So to be around during the 13th century that long ago, that's like pretty incredible. That's like basically when the Zohar was published. So I think that's just wild to me. We've got Dr. John Dee again, and I was studying his hieroglyphic monad. And I didn't actually finish some of the pages. I tend to do that, but okay. So that's the first one. And then the second journal, really just, I went full blown. I was like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate a whole journal to Rosicrucianism. So that's what I did. Here's the front page. We've got lovely Frederick V and Queen Elizabeth Stuart. This is not Elizabeth I. She came after Elizabeth I. This is King James's daughter. She was kind of supposedly like gonna be the new, Queen Elizabeth I. And her and, Frederick V, which I talked about in the Rosicrucian video, is that they were heralding the Rosicrucian movement. And that gets really interesting within itself. So I definitely highly recommend looking into that. And then we have the Invisible College here. So the title is The Esoteric History, a sequel, the Rosicrucians, and the Royal History. This is the first page. We have a picture of Princess Elizabeth Stuart and Frederick V. I love this photo. I think it's so beautiful. I really love the way they depicted lions back then. I think they're just so majestic and gorgeous. So I actually read a lot of notes from Francis Yates's book on Rosicrucianism, the Rosicrucian Enlightenment. So a lot of this is Francis Yates's works. The Order of the Garter, which actually she goes into a lot in her book. And I want to do a whole video on the Order of the Garter. That's going to be something I really plan on going into. Let's see. I have a really gorgeous image here. It's a coat of arms of the Golden Fleece, which that connected my study of the War of the Roses to when I found out that those same royals were also involved in the Order of the Garter and the Order of the Golden Fleece. Thought that was really interesting and symbolic because the War of the Roses, really kind of caught my eye because the symbol itself, when, the Tudor arose from uniting the House of Lancaster and York, I was like, that symbol right there is the same symbol of Rosicrucianism. And I thought, maybe there's a connection. And there was, so it's pretty cool. I got some interesting photos of the Neometria here. This is like a really mysterious manuscript that like nobody can access. It's in the Vatican. Obviously we have images from it, but no one has been able to, look through it and study it. Talk about the rose in regards to Catholicism and how it connects to Mother Mary, which I think is really interesting because Mother Mary is called the Mystic Rose. And then I go into the Royal Society again a little bit. The last page is left with Charles II. Moving on to the third journal, there's not much to show in this one. Really, it's just my study on the Order of the Golden Fleece, but I did not complete it. But it is still really cool to show. I like to decorate my journals. This is the front page. It's very lovely. It's got a picture of the Order of the Golden Fleece. Here's another one. Another one. Here we have Charles the Bold and Margaret of York. And all of these images are like old manuscript images from Flanders. And now Flanders is modern day Belgium. Yes, now it's modern day Belgium. So I kind of go into the history of Flanders because that's where the Order of the Golden Fleece took place. All of this artwork is absolutely beautiful. I did have to dig around for it, and I found these old PDF manuscripts and then I printed them. There is the founder. This is the founder of the Order of the Golden Tree, right, which came prior to the Order of the Golden Fleece. So there's a lot of symbolism with all of these things as well, like the Order of the Golden Fleece, the Order of the Golden Tree, the Order of the Garter. Like all of the names connect to Arthurian legends as well as like alchemy. The Golden Fleece connects to alchemy, and you know, all of this stuff, like the Greek myths and stuff, they all connect to basically the Philosopher's Stone. And so that's what was really interesting to me when I started really diving into this. So I want to get really into that in another video because it's very, very fascinating. Here I wrote about the Grail map actually that depicts some of the Garter Knights. And this is depicting the Holy Grail, which I forgot to mention. It's all like Holy Grail myth. Well, I mentioned Arthurian legend, so. But yeah, so that's what I wrote in this one. So lovely stuff. You know, that already within itself was 30 minutes. Hopefully I can cut that down to, you know, a little bit less. But honestly, I think this video is just gonna have to be a long video, and if you're here to stick with me, you're here to stick with me. So now moving on to my big magnum opus. This within itself is just beautiful. I got gifted this, and it was from like this boutique. I fell in love with it when I saw it. It's so beautiful. It's handmade, obviously. And then I actually glued on this lion emblem, and it fitted so perfect. So I was really happy about that. So the first page is the monad. This is talking all about John Dee's monad here, and I really started to meditate on the monad and what that meant. I'm not going to go too into this part, but I do want to go into some of my, like, you know, personal writings that I wrote that were on these sort of meditations. And what was interesting was I had this dream that was resonating with all of this before I even, you know, delved into this. And the dream was, let's see, I think I might have wrote it down. Yeah. One morning I arose from a deep sleep, hearing the whispers of my spirit say unto me, everything began with a thought, an idea, and a circle, with which much more that I was not able to comprehend or make out when I awoke from this dream. However, within this dream, I do remember it was as if my brain was calculating and downloading a sea of information. Many archetypes and Kabbalistic symbols were upon this dream. And when I arose from this deep sleep, I knew the dream was of much importance, so I began to meditate on its principles, which had led me to meditating upon the circle. And that is when I understood its meaning. Throughout the ages, the origin of life has been represented through the circle, the cosmic egg, or the serpent eating its own tail. And so that's when I go into really like, this is like one of the most fundamental symbols throughout the ages is the circle. We see it depicted in the Ouroboros, as well as many other symbols. The keys to all knowledge are contained in the dot, the line, and the circle. The dot is a universal knowledge, consciousness. The line is universal intelligence, and the circle is universal force. The threshold, the unknowable cause of all knowable existence. This was a quote by Manly P. Hall. Here we have some more symbols. A picture of Robert Flood's mystical compass, and then we have the Paradoxa Emblemata, which is a really rare manuscript here. And this specific manuscript's never really been like published except for in Alchemy and Mysticism by Alexander Rube, and that's the only time I've ever seen it. But this entire manuscript has these like series of photos, like images, that go over like the paradoxes. So it's talking about basically, you know, the meditation of where all things like sprung. What's the inner essence? And so I really started to just meditate on that, as well as Kabbalah and how, you know, Lurianic Kabbalah goes into the Zimzum, which is basically how God contracted itself and then expanded. And it's basically what's really fascinating about this, you know, knowledge is that this was obviously way before you know, the Big Bang, you know, ever was known. So that's why I have so much like deep admiration for Kabbalistic study as well, because it literally talks about the space being a vacuum. So that's another topic for another time. Here's a really cool thing I did in this journal as well. As you can see, I was meditating on the labyrinth, the mystic rose, and Soph and Soph are. And then the pages go like this. This page says, visit my interiors, find my center. My word is sweeter than honey. Unfold me, I am the key. This is something that I wrote. And then we have the emerald tablet symbol. And then it says, visit the interior of the earth. In rectifying, come find the hidden stone. That's what this symbol says right here. I don't know if I show you guys this part too, but here's that as well, which I'm not really going to go into that part. But like I was talking about earlier, I was breaking down the Hebrew gematria of Adam. I guess I'll read this part here. And this is taking from Kabbalah, actually, because we're talking about the expansion and restriction, the Zimzum, which also explains the breath, how everything is breathing. So this is obviously talking about, like, you know, the beginnings of creation / pre-creation. This all was infinite with no end, for creation is movement with no limits, similar to the brain running. This is my own thoughts, my own writings, by the way, here. Similar to the brain running, the thoughts do not stop while being conscious. Thus the infinite blended with the infinite possibilities. These infinite possibilities were concealed in the mind of the Most Holy One. And then I wrote, this is the ultimate paradox. However, the endless, Ein Sof, the infinite, has no boundary either, for it is without shape, measurement, or constraint. This is why Zimzum happened. The infinite had to withdraw itself and open up an empty, vacant space. And then I wrote, and thus the void became pregnant with substance. The empty space became filled. So I kind of go into like the Kabbalistic, you know, approach to Zimzum and how, you know, God is, you know, the all and the infinite and is one, but essentially had to create this vacant space to pour itself into. And that's what, you know, the space that we know of here in the universe is, and how it, you know, really aligns with us knowing that, you know, space is a vacuum and the Big Bang and all of that. It's really, really similar when you look at the two, which I find really, really fascinating. But this is some of the stuff that I drew in here. This is the vacant space. This is the center point. Here I actually have some of Jakob Burma's symbols. Here's another one. And Jakob Burma really goes into these same paradoxes as well as, you know, he goes into the all and the nothingness and you know, good and evil, and basically the yes and the no of all things. So the paradox basically, but also how they interplay with one another and how, you know, we need both. Now this is actually something I want to read to you guys. So here we have, again, I was meditating on the darkness, the void, and Robert Flood's study. So this is what I called it, which this philosophy, the ground or the unground, is from Jakob Burma. I'm pretty sure Jakob Burma coined that, I think. I call the darkness basically the ground of the playground. And the reason why I call it that is because essentially darkness is basically the foundations of all of material reality. And so I kind of go into that and why that is. So I talk about the void and all of that. So I wrote, the void. Thus, close your eyes and sink into the black ground of mind. What is it that you see? The empty darkness that is ever so pregnant with dangerous potentiality. So I kind of like relate the void and darkness to when we close our eyes and all we see is pitch black. And basically I compare it to the Godhead creating, and that's sort of like how I see it, because obviously when we look up, what do we see? We see the, you know, black matter. So what we see the darkness. And what's so, cool about it too is that, black matter is one of the most mysterious, scientific studies. And so I just think it's really cool to kind of relate it to that, to the microcosm, to man, right? When we close our eyes, what do we see? Black darkness. Kind of relate it to how I would see the Godhead creating as being in this voidant space and having, the potentiality to create. Same thing with our thoughts. And I kind of earlier, referenced how I kind of see the infinite, how the universe is constantly expanding and going and going and going. I relate it to the brain having running thoughts and never stopping until obviously we're no longer conscious, and then we don't know what happens after that, right? But I kind of relate it to the same sort of idea. And thus, the will of form arises. I'd come to this wondrous illumination that when I closed my eyes, it had felt like I was standing on a ground of black void. As I closed my eyes and the blackness was all there was, all else disappeared. And my being went into a sort of shock, the sudden realization that this was the primal state, this sort of unprogrammed dark matter that was waiting to be programmed, to be told what it is, to be defined and thus ordered. And in this harmonious moment, seeing and feeling the ground, I hear a feminine voice say to me, "What is it that you see?" And I responded with, "Nothing, I see nothing." Which then led to the voice saying, "The secret is that it can be whatever you wish it to be." Once that statement was declared and I had aligned with the voice and agreed for it to be plausible and true, this primal black matter began to take form, and thus it began to crystallize into geometrical shapes and archetypal symbols, into a doorway of an archetypal world that became opened into a perceivable space of thoughts and ideas. And that's also why I love Kabbalah, is it talks about these different realms, like the realm of ideas and archetypes, and then the astral realm and things like that. So, but this was an actual revelation I had, an experience, a spiritual experience that I had that I wrote down. Thus the concentrated center is the unfolding doorway to the manifest playground. So that's my own writing right there. Goddamn, this is gonna be a long video, but stick with me for the troopers. So, and then I also have another symbol from the Paradoxa Emblemata. It says, "This is the mirror image we have to the Father, a choice, a will, a mind of its own that sees both horror and salvation." And this really is, to me, that's what I see the forbidden fruit is that we are exposed to good and evil, to the dual realm. Love, beauty, anguish, and pride. The birth of all possibilities is thus a birth of all opposites, right? The yes and no of all things, the conscious choice and the horror of the intrusive. I really go into what I feel duality is, and I kind of describe it as this horrendous monster, the dragon, essentially. And then I wrote this quote actually from the Bible. It says, "I am the Lord, there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and I create evil. I, the Lord, do all of these things." This as well is something I wrote myself. Okay. "When we are born from the dark womb, the void of all silence veils the ever supernal all until the light breaks through and gives vision to the eye. It is then that man becomes conscious in a vessel he calls his own, where man becomes separated into the land of forgetfulness, the great fall into the abyss, down into the world of materiality, the question mark of a spiral in infinite wonder. And now the man is an eye, seeing through an eye, an identity that cannot be forgotten, a world that is yet to be explored, a name that codes into the thread of symphony, a mind that wonders where its home is." So that's another thing I wrote. And this is actually a quote from Genesis 3:22. "And then the Lord God said, Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil." Genesis. So now moving on to another thing I wrote here. "I have come to the conclusion
that separation from the monad creates chaos of a paradox. It is the birth of all illusion. It is to have no proof of anything outside of yourself, nor have a remembrance of where you came from. From nothing you were born into something. The ultimate paradox, from the unconscious and the conscious, from An to Ein Sof. And yet, before there was you, the terror and atrocity of the everything existed on. Yet you were unaware to begin with. There's a sort of monstrous thing about it, an all-consuming, evading, and vast terror of a universe amongst universes, a horrifying looking glass of something so ungraspable, so large, unstoppable, and so alien to a child being born. So yeah, basically this meditation really led me to kind of seeing the dragon as actually the universe. And I think that that was a really interesting connection that I made, because obviously there's depictions of the dragon, you know, representing the universe. And I started to really think about it, and I'm like, the universe is this monstrous being that we have absolutely no comprehension of. And it's so minuscule what we can even grasp. And it really is this monstrous, you know, thing. As well as we can go into, again, with the void being the ground, we're literally born inside of our mother's womb, the dark void. That's why the void is called the womb. And so there's just so much that, you know, plays into this philosophy, and it's really fun to just play around with, as well as, like, it's not even just playing around with these ideas, it really is connecting and it makes sense. And this is just what has clicked for me. Before I got into esotericism, I really was completely lost, and I had all of these questions on paradoxes and the universe and myself and consciousness and the nothingness and the everythingness. This is all stuff I've thought about since I was young, and I never had answers, because, you know, religion, you know, is not going to teach you these things, but esotericism will, and it is in fact religious. It goes into all of the religions. Oh, this is really interesting, because I kind of make this connection about the Ouroboros and just like infinity and why I personally feel like it exists. So I write here that basically the desire and the will to create is cyclical. It never wants to stop. It just wants to consume and consume and keep, you know, creating and creating. And how we are born into this world, and how, you know, not saying this is everyone's experience, but I think that there's a hidden essence inside of most of us, I would dare to say all of us, that really fears death so much, because we are consumed by its beauty of this, the beauty of the universe, the beauty of being, and we're trying to understand itself and why we're here. But as terrifying as the universe is, as horrible as, you know, reality can be, there is this all-consuming you know, desire to keep creating. That's why we have thrived here on Earth. It's instinctual. And so basically what I write is that we're consumed in awe, wonder, and crisis that it begins to crave, search, and run. And thus, this running creates the Ouroboros, the cyclical circle, the eternity, the eternal moving, perpetuum mobile, the everythingness that persists to exist. And then I have the Ouroboros here. And I think I'm going to leave you guys with that. Pretty much the end. Oh, it's not the end. I'll show this part because this is like really damn cool and I need to show this. So I do have the alchemical dragon in here. We've got the mercurial dragon. And another one. Whew. Okay, that's the end. That is the end. There is my heart and soul. Yeah, no, this has seriously been very, very personal. This is my esoteric journey and my esoteric journals. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and this has actually kind of been like very healing for me to just sit here and talk about esotericism and why it's so important to me, and why, you know, I feel like we are here. And as confusing and monstrous as it is, there's also beauty, and there's hidden veils of esoteric wisdom that we can unveil, and I do believe we will all unveil eventually one day. And that's why we're on this journey, right? because we are all trying to connect the dots as to why we're here, what connects us, and who and where did we come from. So without further ado, I will see you guys next time. May the rose bloom upon your cross.